Hello everyone, this is Tonmoy and today I'm going to talk about 5 topics and I'm so sick today, so my voice is a little bit weird, so excuse me for this and let's get started with it. The 5 topics are web service, REST, Xml-Rpc, swap, Json. So we will talk about these 5 topics today, and first of all I'm going to talk about web services, and later we will talk about the rest of all this. Web service. First of all, we want to know that what is web service, basic concept behind web service, why we use it. So web service is available over the web, enables communication between applications over the web, provides a standard format for communication. Why we should use it? Platform independence communication using web service. Two different applications can talk to each other and exchange data information, which is basically provide a standard protocol of communication. That basically is web service. And here we can give an example. Okay, here is this is you, and in a restaurant you want to give a water for your food, and so this water will be go to directly kitchen, and the kitchen will serve the order that you want, and this is a waiter who actually take the order and give it to you, the service. But you can also directly go to kitchen and take your order or take your service. But here waiter is working like a web service. That is the basic thing. And this waiter is working like an web service, so you can order your food and he will serve the food that you want. But if you want to directly communicate with kitchen, here is the thing: if you know English but the kitchen chef doesn't know English, then there is a problem. But here waiter can be a server. Yes, can be a server to fulfill your services. So this is that things. Okay, and there is an web page, make my trip. So you can see basically there is some options, and you can give your details, you can book your trip, tickets and flight, and this web page will serve you that you want. This is an example. And here is the thing, make my trip is basically a page where you have the access. They have the access of Air India, Air Go Air, Jet Airways, Indigo, Vistara. So this is the access of this website, where this will send the order, and different website will take it and book the order. So like you just order and they will serve it. This is the basic things of web service. So without further ado, web service is using, you can say that using coordinator, Laravel, different type of framework, which is basically a open source PHP web application framework. So here web service means web service, or no, open service. Open source means is to access the source code and you can change it. Okay. And the PHP, the personal homepage, and web service framework can be used in web service. So here a web service is served offered by an electronic device to another electronic devices, a communication with each other via the World Wide Web, www. In a web service, web technologies such as HTTP, the original decision for human to machine communication, it utilizes for machine to machine communication, more specifically for transferring machine reliability file formats such as XML, JSON. These are the types. In practice, the web service typically provides an object-oriented web-based information to database service. It's a work in many places like database service, mobile application, and where web service consumes several web service or different machines. Serve the page actually compiles the content into one user interface. Explanation. So the team web service describe standardized way to integrating web-based application using the XML swap, WSDL, DDI open standard over the internet protocol backbone. There are different data format. XML is the data format using to contain data, provide the metadata around it. Source swap is used to transfer the web. A web service is a method communication between two electronics device over a network. It is a software function provided as a network address. There are a lot of things. Rules of communication between different systems need to define, such as how one system can request data to another system, which specific parameters are needed to the data request. Here are some things. Okay, what would the structure of the data produce? What is the error message to display when the content rules for communicating is provided to make troubleshooting easier? Okay. Web service that use markup language. So there are a number of web services that use in markup language, and like Json-Rpc, Json-WSP, web template, web service description language, WSDL. There are some markup language for web services. And web API is another thing. Web service is a service oriented architecture. A web API is a development in web service where emphasis has been moved to simpler REST based communication. RESTful APIs doesn't require XML based web service protocols, SWAP and WSDL to support their interfaces. And the last thing, web service change management, work related to capture and visualization of change made to a web service. Visualization and computation to change can be done in form of intermediate artifacts. Okay, the identity subset operation in a WSDL file to construct a subset WSDL. So this is the basic thing, web service change management systems. Okay, so here are some simple code for web service. Input system, input web service, and public class temp convert, and there is a function that is called in the functions and end function end of class. This is basically the simple code of web service. Return error is a function is calling if the function is false, then return error, otherwise it will fulfill the functions. So this is it for web service. Our next topic is REST, so let's talk about it. REST. So first of all, we have to know that what is framework, and a framework is a thing that is open source PHP web application, and there are different types of framework like Coordinator, Laravel, and lots of other stuffs. So here I am using Coordinator. So let's talk about it. REST Coordinator is become well known for its power and PHP based web application framework, but it is not often that we see example if being used to anything else. Today we will learn how we can use Coordinator to create REST API. And what is API? API is something like a messenger which can connect different type of things by one click, and it's basically information. So API for use for your existing web application, and demonstrate how to interact with one API for the other RESTful web services such as Facebook and Twitter. one thing I have to show you. API is application programming interface. Programming interface is a set of routine protocols for the tools building software to connect one another. It's like you give an order and he will give you the service. This is it, API. As we know that you can find a wide selection of coordinator script and apps on Invoke Market, from membership script to menu manager and much more. Tutorial details of programs থাকবে হচ্ছে program coordinator, REST service, coordinators, REST clients, difficult, medium, estimated completion time 30 minutes. Sorry for my Bangla. Programs coordinator, there will be programs coordinator REST service, and coordinator REST client. Introduction: if we have followed the coordinator from search series, you will know by now it is relatively quick and easy to put everything simple web applications such as blogs, systems, branch sites, etc. One thing you may not have enough about your coordinator to create an interactive API. Give example how to interact with it from your web application. Assumption: there are some assumptions like you have a web service set up locally or online and know how to manage file on it. You have read a few of the coordinator from search tutorial. You know how to set up a coordinator. You know a little about RESTful service. The tutorials is broken down into two parts. We will start by learning how to create a RESTful service. Further down, we will learn how to interact with it in a few different ways. Like part 1, creating a RESTful API, which is very important. Step 2, part 1, step 1, basically setting up the demo. Firstly, you need to download the coordinator REST server code from GitHub, which is where you need to push pop services and extract it and move the code to your server. GitHub. When you open a folder, you will see the entire coordinator install, which is there to power the demo. This allow people to have a play with the REST demo before integrating with the existing application. Open up application, configure.php. This is the basic things. PHP opening, and step to the URL with the file extracted and the base URL set. You are ready to load up the RESTful coordinator installer and have a look the demo supplied with it. Browse the base URL, which by default is HTTP localhost REST server. There is a local host where your PC and laptop will be the fake server. Here you will find a few example links to the example API controller, which can be found at application controller example API PHP. Let's direct the URL of this example to see what is going on. The first URL is a very simple one. Index PHP in index PHP example API and users controllers resource exam API is a controller, user is a resource. This URL looks very much like any other coordinated URL with a controller and a method. Okay, index PHP example API user ID 1 format Json is a format user resource parameter ID controllers example API. Normally in a coordinator you just pass in parameter values, but REST controller accept any number of parameters in order for this to work. Okay, this is not that important. At the end of the URL is a format parameter. There is a reserved parameters that will modify the output format to the requested data, like so XML, JSON, HTML. These are the different types. User format JSON, user format HTML. By giving both the API developer and the client application the choice of data format to use, the API is opened up to a much wider audience and can be used with more programming language and system. These three are not only the format support and the box. Your REST API are used XML, JSON, CSV, HTML, PHP. Okay, XML is almost any programming language can read XML. Okay, and JSON is like useful to JavaScript and increasingly PHP app. And HTML, a simple HTML table. CSV open with spreadsheet programs. PHP representation of PHP code that can be evaluated. Serialize. Okay, this is not important. The code now, if you open up application control example API PHP, you will immediately spot a few difference from normal coordinator controls, REST controls, and there are some major example in or explain. You can do different type of things: get, push, put, delete. These are the four basic options used to fetch information about the existing resource. Post used to update an existing resource with information. Put lets commonly used and not supported by most browsers. Delayed also used by many browsers. This HTTP verb rather obviously is used to delete a course. Some returning data. We will talk about this code later on. Securing the API is very important for this basic API controllers. Okay, interacting with RESTful service, whether it is the API you have just built or a public service such as Twitter, you will want to able to interact with it somehow. Seems as RESTful service work with basic HTTP requires. It is very easy to do different method to interact with RESTs. Each of these different interaction method will be shown with the code placed directly in the controller method. This is purely so that demos are easier to read and would normally be placed inside a model or a library to connect MVC separations. They are the codes we will talk about later. Interacting with the API this way works fine, but there are two problems with this method. It usually uses ugly, confusing syntax. Imagine creating several an application based on that CURL is not installed on all services as default. Library REST is a huge library. A REST client library will have been developed what site or top of the CURL library, which handles format conversion, HTTP logins, and several other aspects of your REST API. And talking about Twitter, using Facebook, Twitter, like talking about Twitters, using the REST library, you can talk other RESTful service such as Twitter and Facebook. Here is a simple example how you get details for specific user based on their ID using Twitter's default format XML. So this is all about the theory part, and let's go to the coding parts. Okay, requires. Here you will require the library REST controller.php class is example API extend REST controller. We are controlling REST function. User gets response with information about a user. Response with information about a user and response with information about several user. One user and several user function. User gets This code is also the same. REST controller, extend REST controller function, get user, easy user response with states, errors, then user post, user delete, post, put, post, different type of options. Now user gets data array, this get id data, return the id response. If you have another one, that will be response. Delete id, array returned. So this is the basic things of REST. Okay, so thank you, and we will talk about the rest in the up next tutorials. Now my topic is Xml-Rpc. So Xml-Rpc is a remote procedure call protocol which uses XML to encode it calls and HTTP transport mechanism. Xml-Rpc also referred generically to use XML for remote procedure call independently of the specific protocol. These articles is about the protocol names XML-Rpc. So use case XML-Rpc used sending HTTP required to serve implementing the protocol. The client is the case is typical software wanting to call a single method of remote system. Multiple input parameters can be passed to the remote method. On return value is returned. Okay, this is very fishy things. Okay, so in compositions of REST where resource representations are transferred, XML-Rpc is designed to call methods, data types. Here there is name, tag, examples, descriptions. So array, in array out, data out, value out, value out, array of value, string, no keys, strings, values, something here, strings, values, I4, this is the values. So here is the descriptions, array for values, sorting, no keys, base 64 encoded binary data, which is encode a binary data. Okay, boolean 1, boolean logical value 0 and 1, which is just 0 and 1 can print. Data time. Okay, data time in ISO is 8601 format. Double precision, floating point number, integer out, whole number, integer. This is very easy. Strings, hello world string, this is a strings, hello world. Strings of character must follow XML encoding. A structure is, this is basically a struct member out, struct name out, value member out. It is just like a table, associative array. Null here, discriminated full, null value, and XML-Rpc extensions. Examples, don't worry about it, I will discuss about it later. An example of typical XML-Rpc response would be XML-Rpc fault. A type XML-Rpc would be XML-Rpc response would be criticism, recent criticism. XML-Rpc call be made of plain XML and XML-Rpc not add any value over XML. Both XML-Rpc and requires an application level data model such as which field named are defined in the XML schema or the parameter name. This is basically blocked in somewhere. Okay, there are some things. Programming, except web service, OPML. Okay, so let's jump back to the code part. So where is the code? Here. Method calls, method names. Example dot get. Here get stat names in get all the list of the stat names, and here we found values and this value and this value. We can found this in stat name. Here the get is stat name, where the list we can get list of the stat names in here, and here is the value I4. Okay, so that is it. And XML version of 1.0. Method response params out values string out South Dakota South Dakota values method response method out. Okay, fault value structure member name fault code name value int fault string name fault string 2 parameter strings. Is actually open structure and finish it. This is the specific things. Method response and strings, too many parameter out. So this is it for this lecture. Okay, stop recording. And so my next topic is swap. So to know about swap, you have to know about first web service. Web service is basically two parts, swap and REST. And earlier we talked about REST, so now I'm focusing on swap. So swap is a specification JAX WS, and REST is a specifications JAX RS. So swap is basically a things which is follow some sort of specification, then it will be a SOAP. Okay, so now SOAP is basically a simple object access protocol. It's a protocol specification for interchanging structured information in the implementation web service in computer network. Okay, its purpose is introduce extensibilities, naturalities, and independence. It was XML information sets for the message format. Okay, this is basically a simple mail transfer protocol for message negotiation and transmission. Characteristics: SOAP provide the message protocols layer of a web service protocol stack. For web service, it is an XML based protocol consists three parts: an envelope which defines the message structure and how to process it, to set of encoded rules expressing instances for application defined database system or data types, a convention for representing procedure call and response. So SOAP architecture consists of several layers of specification for message format, message exchange pattern (MEP), and underlying transport protocol bindings, message process model protocol, extensibility. Okay. SOAP invoked as this successor of Xml-Rpc, which is basically two type of things, is order and service, and this is the format to interact with this. This is the XML is the things. XML is the format to connect with SOAP and users. This is the basic things. Okay, so history is not important. SOAP technology: swap, swap nodes, swap roles, swap protocol bindings, swap features of modules. Case of features of provide a messaging format only. However, it can be expanded to add features such as reliability, security, which is very important, etc. There are rules of to be followed when adding features to the SOAP framework. So it basically is the features of a framework. And data and scope encapsulation concepts: SOAP message, SOAP envelope, SOAP header block, SOAP header, SOAP body, SOAP fault. This is the things that is a fault in case a SOAP node fails to process SOAP message. If you give a message then it reverse something, that is called reply. Okay, and if it is fault, then what happen? It's basically in here. SOAP sender will send the message, SOAP receiver, SOAP message path, SOAP initial, SOAP sender, SOAP intermediary, ultimate SOAP receiver. Okay, specification: SOAP NV envelope, SOAP NB header, SOAP inner body. Okay, this is not important. Also building blocks. Okay, elements such as envelope, XML documentary of SOAP message require yes, header information no. You can call yes, fault, provide information to process the message. Transport method: both SMTP and HTTP are valid application layer protocol used as a transport for swap, but HTTP has gained wider acceptance as it works well together in internet interaction. Okay, sorry, my bad. It works well with today internet infrastructure. Okay, so message format XML information set was chosen as the standard message format because of its widespread use by major corporations and open source development effort. This is basically our open source. To talk about open source is who can use or edit source code. This is the basic thing. So we will talk about this code later on. Disadvantage on it. Okay. SOAP as available to all the facilities of XML include easy interactionizations and interchangeability with XML namespace. Disadvantage: the bureaucracy of the protocol, slow parsing speed of XML, and lack of standardized interaction model lead to the domination in the field by serve using HTTP protocol more directly. Okay, so attraction is the basic things also. So let's get to the coding part. This is a very big code. Okay, so using system XML. This using directive assume that the project default namescape is API sample and the name of the Bing API web reference is net.bing.api. Modify this using directly as necessary. So using API.net, this is the API web reference, and static class web sample. Web sample is a static class web sample. Here it is called, and static class web sample. Constant string app ID. Insert your app ID here. Okay, to insert the ID. Bring service is equal to new. To put this in new bring services, and try and catch. This is the important thing. A search of result, bind request, build request. If it is run properly, then nothing will catch. If it is not run, then it will catch the error, but it will run the full code here. Okay, system.net.exe catch console.webline x messages to fail. If it is failed, to send a message. Static search request by build request is the list. New is a app ID query source. New source type dot web. Common request file required. Okay, this is the common field, and this is the web specification required field of the optional. Okay, require web is equal to new web requests. Web count is equal to 10. the true. If true, then offset is equal to 0. Okay, return request, then it will send the what you will request to, and so then static void display response, then it will display all you want to bring app versions and web result for the site you actually give your data from the database, and it will show the data from the database, wider lines and web results, system text, string builder, the new system text string builder, and here is another one code. If else static raw display error, this is the display error code. New XML namespace manager. Okay, if error is equal to null, then console.whiteline errors, print the whiteline console. It will show error in the console for each XML error is error XML. Okay, so whiteline, this is another functions. So that is it. Okay, so today's last topic is JSON. So I'll show you in real quick. So JSON is a JavaScript object notation. JSON is a syntax of storing and exchanging data. JSON is a text written with JavaScript object notation, exchanging data. When exchange data between a browser and a server, the data cannot only be text. JSON is text, and we can convert any JavaScript object into JSON and send JSON into the server. We can also convert any JSON received from the server into JSON JavaScript object. Okay, to sending data. If you have stored in a JavaScript object, you can convert the object into JSON and send it to the server. If you want to fetch it first, then you will send. Receive data. If you receive data in JSON format, you can convert into a JSON into JavaScript object. Sorting data is when sorting data, the data has to be content format, and regardless of where you choose to store it, and text always on the legal format. JSON makes it possible to store JavaScript object in the text. Why use JSON? It's just questions why you actually use JSON. Since the JSON format is text only, it can easily send and from a server and used as a data format by any computer language. JavaScript is build a function to convert a string written in JSON format into the native JavaScript object. This is fetch JSON phrase. If you receive data from a server in JSON format, you can use it any other JavaScript object. This is the thing. And go to I will show you the code in JSON. Okay, first of course var my object name JSON age 31, city New York. Var my JSON string 5 find my object. Okay, this will redirect to the, this is called fetch, and location demo json.php or my json. This is called sending. Okay, you just send this information, verb my json name and New York, and verb object json first my json documentary get, this is fetching. Okay, element byd demo, this is basically the receiver format to receive something from this. Okay, and sorting and receiving the sorting JSON script data. This my json signifying my object, and locations stored set item my json, this is sorting the list, and receiving data's text local storage, and get item test json object json does first text, it will save this file like this, document get element by id demo inner, this is the receiver coding. Okay, so this is sending, this is receiving, this is sorting, and this is again receiving coding of JSON. So this is all about today's lecture, and if you have any questions, please let me know by commenting down below. That's it, and have a great day. Bye.